Hey everyone, I finally have my Cintiq Pro 24 mounted to the official Wacom Vesa Mount. So instead of a full-blown review, which is a piece of metal, I'm going to take you to a how-to and go through some lessons learned that I had so you can take this thing and get running right away and get it mounted and using it more effectively.
Out of bed today. Keep waking up from the previous night.
Alright, here we have some instructions, and they included all the screws and the Allen wrench to screw everything in, and this is it. A lot to do over a big chunk of metal, but we'll see if it works. Right here we're going to have 4 screws for the Vesa mount itself. On the actual mount there's 2 extra screws for the 32-inch, soon to come. What's really a nice touch is on the back of the actual mount, there's sort of this felt material, so you don't have to worry about, when you're pressing it against the Cintiq and screwing it in, that this thing is going to scratch the back of it in any kind of way. Now once you have this lined up, what you're going to have to do is kind of pull these cables a bit tight to have some tension. Now you'll see in a second I put a little cable tie, we'll show that, but you want to make sure those cables are set so that they don't move around, when the arm is moving. Now we're going to put these screws in a second, and you want to be careful when you're putting these things in there. Obviously it's still plastic, so don't over tighten them. There's no need anyway, it holds pretty well. It's a pretty good idea to actually mount the arm to the Cintiq while it's still on the pillow. You're going to need 2 people to get this thing on the actual mount, and we'll show that later. This is a much better view of the cable management, and like I spoke about, I just stuck a little wire tie there for cable management, so when I put my back cover back on, all these wires are neat and tight, and I don't have to think about anything coming apart or any cables being tugged unnecessarily, which could potentially damage the cable. This is a good shot of your video ports, and once again, before you put that back cover back on, if you're going to use that Cintiq Express Key remote, you're going to want to take that little dongle out and put it on the side of the Cintiq if you plan to move it around to other devices. First of all, this Vesa mount does its job. This is a standard, just regular Ergotron arm. It's actually the HP branded one, and it's rated for 20 pounds or something like that. And at first when I tried to put it on, it literally just sank. But I actually super tightened this thing, and even though the instruction said don't over tighten it or you might break it, I just kept going until this thing held up, because I figured if I couldn't use it anyway, it was going to be useless. So standard Ergotron arm, no problem, you're just going to have to over tighten it a little bit. So what's the deal with this and the cable management? When you start to put this together, you're going to have to do a little bit of pre-planning, and what I mean by that is it's probably better to do this with 2 people, because when you're putting this arm on, this thing is a solid 20 pounds. So it's not super heavy, but trying to put this on and mount it and do this cables, it's a bit complex, and I'll show you why. So first of all, I'm using DisplayPort, and this is just the standard USB, and over here is going to be your power, right? But what happens is when you start to loop these over, at first I didn't see these little cable connectors, and the instructions are really kind of lacking, showing, they say attach it to the Cintiq, but I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid. Most of the time with the display, your cables are coming down, right? So when you're talking about moving the thing around or anything like that, the weight of the cables are naturally going to just be pulling down. With the way these cables are, you sort of have to reproduce the same thing, and maybe that's why they went with these holes on the side. We'll see this knockout here. Your cables have to be straight in a line to make sure that that is allowed to happen. So here you can see I'm trying to go in, as this is mounted already, and it's going to give me a problem. So I wanted to leave this thing off for, obviously the how-to purposes, but really what you should do is once you get these cables sort of in order, you're going to put this thing on if you want to keep it on, and then you're going to mount the Vesa to it. Trying to do it the other way, So the one really good thing Wacom did here is they've really given you some quality cables, okay? The problem is that they're really thick. So as you mounted them, and I showed already where, in the middle I have the little tie, you're going to have to kind of wiggle these things in and out after either the engine or the back of this thing are already on. Okay, because when they come out, they're so thick, they don't really flex well. Do you know what I mean? But once they're in there, they're not going to tug and screw at anything or weigh the thing down. This is power once again. Okay, and we see that I'm coming into the arm, which was a real pain in the ass because they're so thick, but eventually got it to work. So just in review, you're going to line up your cables first. You're going to attach them to the Cintiq, put a little tie there at the bottom, test the engine or the back cover, with that little tie down at the bottom before you put this Vesa mount on. Put the back on or the Cintiq engine. Then you're going to have this thing, like I showed before, on a couple of pillows or something really light, and then you're going to stick the Vesa mount. That'll be the last step. With a two-person part, you're going to want somebody to hold this Cintiq as you're kind of bringing it down, because this thing's, once again, a solid 20 pounds, and have somebody kind of holding, guiding you into this pole thing, because it's just so heavy that it won't slide down. But, just for safety purposes, have two people. You spent money on this thing, you don't want to wreck it. When measuring your cables out, you want to make sure that you test all positions before sort of putting everything together. And what I mean by that is, I don't know why you would put the Cintiq down like that, but whatever your positions of choice are, you can see these cables are going to start to tug. So before you do all your cable management and all the ties and everything like that, you just want to make sure that whatever positions you're going to plan to put this thing, that you test these cables out. Again, you have another person with you just to make sure that somebody's holding it, and you're kind of playing through this thing to make sure once you get these screws on, everything's right. Now we'll just go through a quick, I wouldn't say demonstration, but just so we could see. Obviously I've got full positions. You may not get it totally. You see how it's a little like that. That's only because the position I have the arm, and I'm trying to get it on camera, because obviously this thing's so big it will tilt back and sort of touch on the arm. But in the position I want it, this is coming towards, but now the arm is starting to turn. The more the arm is at an angle like this, the less room you're going to have to get it flat. So I've shifted the arm into position, which is sort of where I'll be using it. Again, you can see the 90-degree angle of the arm and how flat I get it. And the tablet has a little wiggle to it. Again, it's 20 pounds. But when I'm leaning on it, I don't find really much of an issue. I've got about as much motion as I could ever want on this thing. So final thoughts on this thing. It does the job. It works. It's only about $80, which is, less obnoxious than some of the competitors with their metal Vesa mounts. I wish they had it included in here from the beginning, but at least they listen to their customers and they put something out that's somewhat cost effective and gets the job done, so you can reuse whatever Ergotron arm you have. That's all I have for today. Please click like, subscribe, hit the little bell. My Cintiq Pro 24 touch review is coming soon. I promise. It's just work has been so crazy. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks.